This is what's holding up the deal. It's very simple. Hamas wants two things. They want, number one, a permanent ceasefire. Number two, permanent withdrawal from the IDF. That is what's holding up the deal. Everything else that they're telling you in Western media, oh, they don't want a ceasefire, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they don't want a temporary ceasefire. They want a permanent ceasefire because they're aware of what Israel's trying to do. The plan from the beginning, guys, was to do an ethnic cleansing. So the only way that they're going to protect the land from being ethnically cleansed and getting annexed is by saying we need a permanent ceasefire and we need a permanent withdrawal of troops. Israel's not going to do that.
Some of this body is seeking to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities. This would be a reward for these horrible atrocities, including October 7th, even while they refuse to release the hostages or accept a ceasefire.
Donnie, come on, man. You know the truth. They did accept the ceasefire. The thing is that they want a permanent ceasefire, and the Israelis don't want to give them a permanent ceasefire. Guys, I got to sound like a broken record, okay, about this because most Americans are so uninformed on what is going on when it comes to the Middle East and this conflict. Here's the reality, okay? Okay, and here's the clip, Israel's reaction. As you guys can see here, here's their foreign rep right here that was at the UN giving his comments after. Let's talk about this real quick. Look at me, I'm the captain now, chat, okay? This is what's holding up the deal that no one wants to admit. It's just simple. Hamas wants to give back all the hostages. They want this conflict to end. Hell, back in October 10th, they didn't want the conflict to even start. But Israel invaded anyway. Fine, whatever. But if Israel cares about the hostages as much as they claim they do, which they don't, by the way, I've proven this to you guys on multiple occasions. Okay, I'm thinking about doing a special 10-7 episode for you guys, debunking all the lies once again to remind you guys. But here's what's holding up the plan, and here's what's holding up the ceasefire. And it's amazing that Western media doesn't report this. Even Al Jazeera barely reports this. It's very simple. Hamas wants two things. They want, number one, a permanent ceasefire. Number two, permanent withdrawal from the IDF. Okay? Say that again. Hamas wants permanent withdrawal from the Gaza Strip by the IDF and a permanent ceasefire. This is what's holding up the deal, chat. That is what's holding up the deal. Everything else that they're telling you in Western media, oh, they don't want a ceasefire, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they don't want a temporary ceasefire. They want a permanent ceasefire because they're aware of what Israel's trying to do. Now, the reason why the Israelis don't want to agree to this permanent ceasefire is because that would be antithetical to their original plan from the beginning. The plan from the beginning, guys, was to do an ethnic cleansing, okay? I'll even give it to the Israelis. I don't think their plan originally was to conduct a genocide, even though that's what they're doing now. I don't think they were like, oh, yes, let's conduct a genocide. No. I think their plan was to destroy as much of Gaza's infrastructure so that it becomes uninhabitable and miserable to stay. So in other words, it would behoove them to leave. Okay? Now, if genocide ends up happening, whatever. They don't care. I don't think they systematically said they're like, we're going to sit there and genocide them. No. But what they did say was we're going to get them out of the Gaza Strip. If a genocide occurs from it, we don't care. Big difference. The goal was ethnic cleansing from the beginning. Hamas understands this. So the only way that they're going to protect the land from being ethnically cleansed and getting annexed is by saying we need a permanent ceasefire and we need a permanent withdrawal of troops. Israel's not going to do that because right now as we speak, by the way, guys, this whole past 2 weeks that the Charlie Kirk information has been going on, Gaza's upped their military presence in Gaza tenfold, okay? It's no longer them coming in for a military campaign. Now it's them coming in for a occupation campaign. Does that make sense? So when they were running Operation Gideon's Chariots and they originally invaded the Gaza Strip, they came in with way less soldiers. Why? Because they did airstrike, 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 then move in the ground troops. Then, as they continue to move down the Gaza Strip, airstrikes, 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 then move the troops. That's how it goes. Airstrikes first, tanks and foot soldiers follow behind. Now that we're on the final leg of this conflict, Israel's ramped up the amount of soldiers in the area to conduct an occupation because clearing area is one thing, but holding it is a whole other. You need way more soldiers to hold an area and occupy it. Hamas, understanding this, says, look, we're not giving you guys the hostages so you completely leave and have a permanent ceasefire. That is what's holding up the deal, chat. Do not believe the mainstream media. Do not believe the liars sitting there saying, oh, yeah, these guys are being unreasonable, blah, blah, blah. It's the Israelis that are being unreasonable. And also, think about it this way, too, guys. Let's use common sense, right? Who stands to benefit from extending the conflict? Right? Who stands to benefit? Let's go ahead and just go on a list of things here. Does Hamas benefit as their city continues to get destroyed, more people die, casualties go up, etc.? You can make the argument a little bit because then they can use it to show how unreasonable Israel is, right? So it's kind of like a back end benefit. But who stands to benefit on the Israel, or how will the Israelis benefit? Oh, well, now we're getting somewhere. Number one, Netanyahu continues to stay in power, despite the fact that he's in the middle of a corruption trial. If you guys noticed, every time there's an escalation in the conflict, it just so happens to occur right around the time Netanyahu's supposed to go to court. Remember that bus shooting a couple weeks ago? You guys remember that one? Remember that? It's old news now, but roughly 2 weeks ago, there was a shooting in Israel. I think it was in the West Bank or something like that, where 2 Arabs opened fire on a bunch of Israelis. That day, your boy Netanyahu was doing court. Guess what he did? Canceled the court date. Sorry, we got hit with a terrorist attack. Interesting coincidence. Right? That's just one example. There's been many more. But this war has allowed Netanyahu to effectively consolidate all power to himself. With said power, he's able to run the conflict, operate the Mossad, because as you guys know, Mossad answers directly only to the prime minister in Israel, according to their laws. So it effectively keeps him in power while simultaneously pushing off his corruption case. Guys, they got him dead to rights on his corruption case. It's been going on since 2016. He's been just kicking the can down the road. But they got him dead to rights. Why else does Israel benefit? This gives Israel time to attack all their enemies. Over the past 2 years, Israel has attacked almost every country in the Middle East. They bombed Lebanon. They bombed Iraq. They bombed Syria. They bomb Yemen. Obviously, they bomb Gaza. They've been attacking the West Bank. Hell, they even bombed Qatar. They've bombed almost every country in the region, Iran. So the longer that he stalls this war, the longer he can continue to fight his enemies. So once again, you guys don't got to take my word for it. I told you guys what it is. Yo, they want a permanent ceasefire, and they want the IDF to withdraw. What are the benefits from Hamas extending this conflict? Not really much. Maybe some, empathy from the international community. Fine. At the cost of people dying every single day. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth it for them even. This is why they try to strike a deal on October 10th, which defeats any argument they might say where they're like, oh yeah, they just want people to die so they can get more sympathy. Why did they come to the table on October 10th with a deal before Israel invaded? Right? So that defeats the argument. Now, let's look at the Israeli side. How did they benefit? Netanyahu stays in power. He doesn't have to give it up. Netanyahu is able to attack all of his enemies. He's able to activate operations that they had going on for a long time. How do I know this? The Hezbollah pager attack was a 10-year-long operation. Yes, I did not stutter. The Hezbollah pager operation was a 10-year operation, guys. Netanyahu needed to stay in power to make that operation go. Why do you think he activated it 10 years later? Then, Operation Rising Lions, where they had Mossad operatives behind enemy lines. How long do you guys think they had been in there? He activated those Mossad assets so they could destroy their air defense so the Israeli Air Force can come in and bomb them. He backed Ahmed al-Shara, the current president of Syria, by the way, who Marco Rubio just met with yesterday, FYI. Ahmed al-Shara, a.k.a. al-Jalani, guy used to be a member of Al-Qaeda, that guy. Yeah, Marco Rubio just met with him. A verified terrorist that used to have a $10 million bounty on his head. Yeah, met with that guy. Israel put him into power alongside the United States and NATO. Because after the Hezbollah pager attack was successful and Hezbollah was dismantled and disrupted, Syria and the HTS and the rebel groups, they all started to attack Bashar al-Assad at once. And with Russia weakened, Hezbollah weakened, and Iran weakened, and Hamas weakened, and the Houthis weakened, Ahmed al-Shara was able to make his way down to Damascus and take over. Israel had a hand in that. So as you guys can see from all the evidence I'm giving you, who stands to benefit from extending the war? The Israelis do. The Israelis do, 100%. Especially Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The longer the war goes, the less he has to deal with this corruption trial. And there's been pretty credible evidence to show that there was a stand-down order placed on October 7th. It took the IDF almost 6 hours to respond. We're talking about one of the most secure borders in the world. It took them 6 hours to respond to a terrorist attack. So, look, I'm not telling you guys what to think, but that's the evidence. You guys tell me who you think or who stands to benefit from extending this conflict based on the evidence you guys know. I can't really think much of Hamas. So this comes back to my final conclusion point. Hamas wants to end the conflict. They get no benefit from extending it or dragging it out longer. Gaza continues to get destroyed, more people die. They want a permanent ceasefire and IDF permanent withdrawal. The Israelis refuse. Oh, Myra, how do you know that? Well, look at who stands to benefit from extending it. The Israelis do. So who is more than likely telling you the truth? Me or the mainstream media? You decide. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. I covered a lot there, but that's what's going on in the Middle East, chat.